Shalom, Israel. It's that time again. The ISUPK, under Commanding General Yahana, presents the Lord's 57th Annual Passover. That's right, the Lord's 57th Annual Passover, April 4th, 2026, in Houston, Texas. All Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans are commanded to observe the Lord's Passover. This will be the biggest Passover to date. You do not want to miss this. Fresh lamb, fresh wine, and bitter herbs as commanded by the Most High. Only $200 per person, ages 17 and up. The biggest event of the year. There is only one Passover, and it's under Commanding General Yahana. See you there, Israel. Shalom.
Nobody else there to compare to. Train for war, men of war, and warlike apparel. Prefer our leaders, can't get between us. Watch where you stepping.
Shalom, Israel. This is the ISUPK, star out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yahana. This is Thursday night scripture breakdown class. Before I get started, do you have any questions? If anybody online have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them. The title of the class tonight is, Do We Trust the Most High or Should We Trust Man? The reason I titled the class that is because we put our faith in men instead of the Most High. We make excuses for why we don't feel like we should have to follow the law. There's brothers and sisters that will vehemently argue you down if you tell them that you don't eat pork because God said not to eat pork. They'll give you every excuse, every reason, every crazy scenario that's not realistic to justify their desire to eat pork. You know, there's also, you know what I'm saying, as Israelites, we have a culture, you know what I'm saying? We have our shields, we have the menorah, we got the lions, we got the Ark of the Covenant, you know what I'm saying? The Lord has given us all type of things throughout our history to identify with, to give us our own sense of culture, our own sense of self. But there's men out here who would tell you that the Shield of David is the Star of Remphan, you know? Let me pull that right quick, matter of fact, because there's people that believe in that. Right. Was it Acts 7:43? Let's go with Acts. Book of Acts, chapter 7. In verse 43. Let me know when you get there, sis. Yeah. All right, it's the book of Acts, chapter 7, and verse 43. Yea, ye took up, well, let me start off in verse 42. It says, Then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets, O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? So that 40 years in the wilderness is what he's asking about right there, is when we was in the wilderness in Mount Sinai, walking from Egypt. For 40 years, we walked from Egypt to what ended up becoming Jerusalem, to the land of the Canaanites that we took. It took us 40 years to get there, a walk that should have taken 11 days, right? Because the Lord had to kill off that whole generation because those brothers and sisters was wicked, all of them. And the only ones that was allowed to see the kingdom was that actually walked out of Egypt was Joshua and Caleb. Those are the only two that made it to the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? But for that 40 years while we was in the wilderness, the Lord gave us the law. And well, he had Moses give us the letter of the law, the written law. And it talked about all of the sacrifices that we had to do. And when we would sacrifice, why we would sacrifice. So through those 40 years, he would make them sacrifices to the Most High. So that's what that verse right there is talking about. Verse 43. Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. So men go to this verse and talk about how the shield of David is the star of Moloch, or the star of Remphan, Salaki. But how can that be? Where in this verse does it say that the star of Remphan is a shape? Let me ask you a question, sis. If we watching Hancock, who's the star in that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Mm-hmm.
If we watching Rush Hour, who's the star in Rush Hour?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Chan. If we watching what's a popular movie that's out? If we watching Austin Powers, who's the star in Austin Powers? Who?
Mm-hmm.
Mini-Me. Right. So as how come those stars aren't shapes? How do we know that those stars aren't shapes? Because they're what? Say it one more time. I can't hear you. Figures. What do you mean? They're people. Right. Now, where in this verse does it say that the star of Remphan is a shape? It says you took up the tabernacle of Moloch. A tabernacle is like a building, right? So you took the building of Moloch and the star of your god, Remphan. Who's the god? Remphan. I'm sorry, Salaki. Uh yeah, who's the god? Moloch. Is the tabernacle of Moloch, which is the star of the god Remphan. We know that there is no such thing as a god named Remphan. But during those days, men believed in multiple gods. Men weren't monotheistic. They believed in a whole bunch of different fake gods. And in that verse, it's literally telling you right there, if you just read it, the tabernacle of Moloch, the building or the place of worship for Moloch, who is the star of the god Remphan. Just like white Jesus is the star of the God of Christianity. You know what I'm saying? But men will tell you that that us wearing the shield means that we wearing the star of Remphan. You ask them to prove it, they'll bring you to this verse, but don't explain how that shape matches this verse. Nowhere in that verse does it say that shape, that the star of Remphan is the shield of David. You know what I'm saying? Nowhere in that verse does it say that the shield of that the star of Remphan is the shape of a quote unquote star. And then also, if it because it doesn't specify that star got 6 points, why isn't it a pentagram? Why ain't it a 5 point star? Why ain't it a compass rose, a 7 point star, or a 8 point star? Why is it the shield of David? That why is that coincidentally just the one that they choose? You know what I'm saying? It don't make sense. But I'm gonna see if I can find something to show y'all right quick. Because we don't just get the shield of David from nothing. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just random that we chose that shape and called it the shield of David, right? Let me share my screen real quick so that y'all can see this. All right. So this right here is a so-called 5 point star. This was also at Capernaum. Why? Well, all this architecture is from Capernaum, right? Capernaum is a city in this a place in the city of Jerusalem, right? It's ancient. It's from before the second temple fell, right? But here we see different shapes, right? A so-called 6-point star, a so-called 5-point star. You know what I'm saying? But here we got the shield of David right here on the architecture in Capernaum. But they'll tell us that this somehow, some way, that this shape just magically is the star of Remphan. But they don't connect it to nothing. There's no history, no nothing. So do we obey the Most High God, or do we obey men? Follow men who can't even provide scholarship on the claim that we're wearing the star of Remphan. And then the verse they take us to in the Bible don't even match up to what they saying is the star of Remphan. Because nowhere in there does it say that it doesn't look like this. Nowhere does it say that it does look like this. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, I just wanted to show that. Though that was an example of when we follow after men and what men say, you end up confused and lost like that, right? So I'm gonna get to the scriptures. We're gonna start off with let's go to Jeremiah 44. Do we want to go there? Hold on, Slack. We'll go to Jeremiah. No, we'll go to Isaiah 30 first. We'll go to Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 1. And then we'll make our way to Jeremiah. We'll go to Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 1. Let me know when you get there. You there?
Yes.
All right, it's the book of Isaiah, chapter 30 and verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children that saith the Lord. So like it saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that covereth with a covering, but not of my spirit. They may add sin to sin. So the Lord said destruction. Woe means destruction to the rebellious children, those of us of Israel that take counsel but not of the Lord, right? So when we go to the world and look for counsel to find instruction on how we should live, the scriptures say woe to us, destruction to us. Because we're looking for the wisdom on how to live our lives out there in the world. When the world wants you to live your life in a do whatever you want type of spirit, do whatever you want to do style. You know what I'm saying? And it's all about your happiness, your joy, and it ain't about it. You don't sacrifice for nobody. You don't endure hardship for nobody. You know what I'm saying? They want you to live your life and have your fun and damn everybody else. Damn that brother that need help. Damn that sister that need help. That them children that need help. They don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? It says, but not of me, and that covering with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. So they cover themselves with Christianity. They say, well, I'm a good person. I may not follow the laws, but I'm a good person. I'm a decent person. May not, you know what I'm saying, give to the homeless, but I ain't kicking nobody door in or nothing. Now, I'm not downplaying the people that do good things, even though they're not in the truth. Because the scriptures say that there are those of us who don't have the law that are a law unto ourselves, showing that there's a part of us that just naturally desire to serve the Lord. There's things about us, even in our superstitious behaviors in America and abroad, that we don't back down on. For example, my whole life I grew up really not eating pork. I ate basic like sausage and stuff like that, like breakfast sausages and stuff like that. But like pepperoni on pizza, what else? Pork chops, bacon, none of that. My mama didn't I just didn't eat that. My mama didn't eat it, so I didn't eat it. You know what I'm saying? So even though she wasn't perfect in following the law, she did have a semblance of our culture, you know what I'm saying, how we should live. That thing, there was something in her telling her, this ain't no good for me. I'm not gonna eat this. And she didn't allow me or my little brother or sister to eat it neither. You know what I'm saying? So there's some people that are a law unto themselves, but there are people that make a covering to make excuse instead of covering themselves with the spirit of the Lord, which is the spirit of truth. They make excuse for the things that they want to do, as opposed to being willing to sacrifice the thing that they want to do so that they can be righteous. That's what this verse is talking about when it says that they may add sin to sin. Verse 2, that walk down into Egypt, that's like it, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. That right there is talking about spiritual Egypt today. That's talking about, well, even right here in Isaiah, it's talking about the spiritual place that will eventually become spiritual Egypt, where we don't turn to the Most High no more. We turn to the oppressor and his laws and his government and his religions and his belief systems and everything that he gives us. We follow that as opposed to serving the Most High, following after the Most High and seeking the wisdom of the Lord, right? The scriptures say in the law that our law is going to be our wisdom in the sight of the Lord, in the sight of the nations. When the heathen see us, they think this is a wise people, a wise and mighty people, because we have such incredible wisdom that they don't, just basic wisdom that they couldn't even imagine having, right? So you have a lot of different nations out here that, like, so we got a law where if we walking down the street and you see a bird nest in the street, it's a mama bird and like 3 eggs. What do you think you're supposed to do? What can you do, rather, I should say? Can you eat the mama bird? Why? Because she can have more eggs, but you can eat the eggs. The reason why is, like you said, because she can make more eggs. That's wisdom in the eyes of the Lord. And the heathen, they don't think that way. They'll just go out and just kill and just eat. They don't care. They don't care if they leave in a potential resource that's self-sustaining to die off. What happens if we take the mama and leave the eggs? They can't hatch. Them birds ain't gonna make it because ain't no mama to sit on the eggs to incubate them. You know, or something will get to the nest and eat them, and then nothing will be there to replace the eggs that was in the nest. There's no, there's not, it's not refurbishment. The Lord made the world on a cycle that's self-sustaining. You know what I'm saying? That's why we can unalive cattle and there still be cattle. We can unalive, pigs and there still be pigs, chickens and there still be chickens. Because for one, we're not supposed to be greedy and just unalive every single thing. But for two, those things are able to reproduce and replenish themselves naturally. The same thing is true with oil in the earth. You know what I'm saying? All natural resources are replenishable. Over time, they will come back. You know what I'm saying? If the world is left time to heal. And the law tells us that too. The law tells us every 7 years we have to stop planting crops. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's important to leave the ground alone after 7 years for a year? So it got time to replenish itself on nutrients. So picture this, right? Say we got a farm. We got 1,000 acres of land, right? All farmland. And we cultivate it all year long for 7 years, for 6 years. That seventh year, whatever we planted, we leave it. You know what I'm saying? So the sixth year after we take the harvest, we replant the seed. And whatever we plant there, we leave it for the whole year. Let it grow, fall, everything fall off, and let the plants die. They decompose back into the ground. You know what that's doing to the ground? It's feeding it, yeah, it's feeding it, but it's putting nutrients back into the earth. So that when we plant new plants, they got nutrients to feed off of. That's how the rainforests in South America are so large. That's why you got trees and dense foliage and the canopy and everything so big, because the foliage had time to sit there, fall, die, and then, decompose and became nutrients for the sproutlings to grow. That's why invasive species in South America, getting rid of them is so important, because they're disrupting that cycle. But that's a man-made problem, because men released exotic animals over there into the wild, and the trade industry, things made it on boats from the eastern hemisphere over here to the western hemisphere, and it's polluting the environment. You know what I'm saying? The ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it says that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. And that's what we do. We trust in the shadow of Egypt instead of having faith that the Lord gonna pull us through when we, especially at our most destitute. You know what I'm saying? We willing to sell out for a couple dollars, willing to sacrifice our integrity to get paid. You know, a lot of us are, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. Let's go to Isaiah 31 and verse 1. Let me know when you get there. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 31 and verse 1. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses and trust in chariots, because they are many. It said, woe, death and destruction to them that go down to Egypt for help. The same as the last verse we read. It's just expounding on that topic a little bit further. So now instead of trusting in the religions of the earth and the belief of white supremacy, it says, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and to stay on horses and trust in the chariots. That staying on horses and trusting in chariots it's not literal. It's talking about us working on their force. So imagine you got black men and black women that want to work as police officers, right? You go and join the force. They got the good old boy system, the code, the boys in blue, you know what I'm saying, code, the brotherhood amongst them, where no matter what you do, even if you're a black cop, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna likely be defended by the legal system, so long as you harming black people. Evidence of that is those brothers in Memphis that unalived Tyree Nichols, I believe was the brother's name in Memphis. They unalived that brother. He was autistic. They say that there was a story about him messing with one of their girlfriends or whatever, but these are police officers we're talking about. They could have handled that a different way. They abused their power and they unalived that brother, him calling out for his mother on film. And there's white officers there and everything. And all of this is happening on film. That's what happens when you join yourself to the oppressor's justice system. You start to hate your own people because if those brothers would have been brothers to that brother and any other brother, that they got a whole task force called the Scorpion Force, whatever, where they specifically target low income areas, which obviously is us in Memphis. But if they had brotherhood and did their job the way the job is supposed to be done, how it ought to be done, those brothers would face a whole bunch of scrutiny and discrimination on the force. Their lives would be in danger instead of the people whose lives they are endangering for their white masters, right? And that's why that verse says, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay on horses and trust in chariots. When you stay on horses and trust in chariots, according to this verse, that's you going on that white supremacy workforce and you trusting on them to take care of you and your family instead of trusting on the Lord, not selling out your people for the sake of survival. Trusting the Lord is going to make sure that you can survive, right? Christ said the birds don't pray to the Lord and ask for food, but he feeds them, right? The fox got a home to lay his head, but the Son of Man don't got no home. Christ wasn't worried about himself having a home. He knew the Lord was going to provide somewhere for himself and the disciples to lay their head. And they did. And he did. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, the animals in the earth don't pray to the Lord for nothing. They have all the ultimate faith. Obviously, they don't have the intelligence to be able to pray. But that's the point that the scriptures is making. We don't have to think about how we gonna make it. The Lord is gonna take care of us. Obviously, we do have a responsibility to maintain. Christ said, "Occupy until I return." So obviously, you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't think at all, literally, but I'm saying don't sell out your people and sell yourself and remove your integrity for the sake of making a couple dollars, because that's what this verse is talking about. I'm gonna keep reading. It says, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. It said, don't have faith in the horsemen either, because they're very strong. You know what I'm saying? Don't look for white supremacy to protect you. Look at what happened to that sister Sonia Massey. She literally didn't do anything. She called the police because she felt unsafe. The police job was to come and make her feel safe, and they unalived her. She thought that calling on them because they were strong, that she would be safe. And she lost her life for it because she didn't trust in the Most High. She trusted in the oppressor system. She joined herself to it. It says, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. And that's the problem. We look to everywhere for salvation except for the Most High. We try to get salvation from everywhere and everybody, and we don't trust in the Lord to take care of us, to protect us, to provide for us. And then when bad things happen, we wonder why those bad things happen. The Lord be with us in so many instances, man. How many times was it that something bad happened to you that you could have died from? But the Lord didn't allow that to happen because he brought you, he was bringing you to a certain point. You know what I'm saying? The scriptures say that angels in heaven rejoice whenever just one of us wakes up to the truth, right? When you start to change your life and you decide that you're going to serve the Most High and you make that conscious decision, the angels in heaven rejoice. Why? Because you turning back to being who the Lord wants you to be, to being how he wants you to be. Shalaki, let me drop that. Let's go to, we want to read more of that? Let me see. Yeah, let's go to Jeremiah 44 now. We go Jeremiah 44 and verse 8. And shalom, everybody who's in the chat. If you got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them. Let me know when you're ready, sis. Yeah, if we go into Jeremiah, it's the next book right after Isaiah. Jeremiah chapter 44 and verse 8. Matter of fact, we're going to start at verse 7. Let me know when you're ready. It's the book of Jeremiah chapter 44 verse 7. Therefore now, thus saith the Lord, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, wherefore commit ye this great evil against your souls, to cut off from you man and woman, child and suckling, out of Judah, to leave you none to remain. The Lord is asking the question, why do we commit great evils against our souls, knowing that the judgment that's going to come from that is the destruction of our people? We had the civil rights movement, and at the end of that, at the very, very end of that, was the destruction of the Black household, the Hispanic household. We lost the family structure, especially in the Black household. We lost the Black family structure. You know what I'm saying? That's what the price we paid for relying on our oppressor instead of relying on the Most High and his wisdom. When we trust in the oppressor, that causes our destruction. So the Lord is questioning, why would we do that to ourselves? I'm going to read it again. It says, therefore now thus saith the Lord, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, wherefore commit ye this great evil against your souls, to cut off from you man and woman, child and suckling. That child and suckling is talking about obviously children and babies. We cutting our babies off from the Most High when we decide we're going to teach them to be Christian, teach them to be Muslim, teach them to believe in the universe. You know what I'm saying? Believing in the universe, that's so even with believing in Christianity, you have some type of foundation that you leaning towards. Believing in Islam, you got some type of foundation that you believe that you leaning towards, that you got that some type of morality to you. But what does believing in the universe do for anybody? I never understood that. How does believing in the universe mean I'm gonna get off drugs? Mean I'm gonna stop abusing my brother and sister? How does believing in the universe mean I'm gonna stop sleeping with whores? How does that change what I want to do? It doesn't. It does all it does. Believing in the universe, from my understanding of it, is a belief in karma. That's one small aspect of being a good person. Being a good person is more than just not doing bad to somebody else because you don't want something bad to happen to you. You know what I'm saying? Being a good person is going out your way for people, going out your way to help somebody. But the universe don't convince me to want to do that. All it convinces me to do is to not want to put my hands on nobody because I don't want them to put their hands on me. You know what I'm saying? It don't convince me to to give up nothing that I'm doing that's evil or wicked. It don't convince me to change my thought process, to change, to strive to be a better version of myself. It don't convince me to do that. It just convinced me to get defensive and protect myself by not causing harm to others. That's all it convinces me to want to do. Right? So I'm gonna continue. It says in verse 8, in that ye provoke me unto wrath with the works of your hands. So the Lord is saying that we provoke him to wrath with the works of our hands. The things we do cause him to be angry at us. When we face strife and struggle in life, when things get outlandishly hard, it's because we don't trust in the Lord. We trust in our oppressor or his ways. And because of the things that we learn here in this place, the Lord got to punish us. We have to experience his wrath. When we could have the hedge around us, that's what it means to be blessed, is to have a hedge of protection around us, just like Job had. But the Lord will remove that hedge when it's come time to judge us. And then we start to suffer. It says, burning incense unto other gods in the land of Egypt, whether you be gone to dwell, that ye might cut yourselves off, and that ye might be a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. And that's what we've made ourselves by joining ourselves to white supremacy, joining all these so, quote unquote black groups and black power movements, Black Lives Matter, all of that. All that was set up. Ultimately, at the very, very head of all of it is the Jewish man. It ain't even just the regular white man. It's the most evil of the white man. You know what I'm saying? The ones who flat out stealing your identity. They're controlling the entire narrative to make you submissive, to control how we are as a people. Now you got these new organizations like the Black Lions and stuff like that, where brothers are finally starting to see that allowing them to join us, to march with us, to walk with us is a detriment. Because every time that happens, they destroy the movement. And then it causes us to fail. It causes us to backslide. So now you got these new brothers that's out here in ISUPK, Indiana. Shout out to Captain Kaposh. They got invited to that that meeting, that rally, whatever you want to call it, where those different groups in Indiana got together. The Black Panthers was there, but also those that, like I said, that new group, that Black Lions was there. And those young brothers is really seeing a potential for a different future. You know what I'm saying? They saw the error in the old movements and they're trying to move in a different direction. It's a glorious thing. You know what I'm saying? But it says that we'll be a reproach to all the nations. Again, our wisdom in the sight of all the nations is the law. That's supposed to be the thing that keeps us grounded, that makes us, you know what I'm saying, the Lord's people, protected and mighty and wise in their sight. But when we start following after a base people, that's what the Bible describes white supremacy as, a base people, a vagabond, a fugitive. When we start taking on their sense of morality, their moral code, their moral compass, this is what happens to us. We become a reproach to all the nations. They're supposed to look up to us and see us. And look at us in sports. We're the greatest thing on earth in sports. Boxing, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, everything. Tennis, track, exactly. We're the greatest on earth in every sport, except for Olympic swimming. That's because that water too cold. Let them warm that water up, we're going to be in there too. You're looking confused. I don't know if you know this, but historically, in the most recent times, the greatest Olympic swimmer so far has been Michael Phelps. There ain't nobody done dethroned him yet. But again, that's because black people ain't competing on the Olympic stage in swimming yet. Because that water cold. When they heat that water up, best believe niggas is coming. We're going to take the gold. Even in gymnastics. What's the sister name? What was her name? Simone Biles, the water. Even Simone Biles. That's just the gymnastics. You know, white people believe they got a claim to that. Not no more. You know how that they ain't got no claim to it no more? Because the sister did a trick of a flip that no one ever seen before. And they said it was too good. And they banned her from the Olympics for it and gave the gold to a white woman. Because they inferior. They can't compete or keep up with us in our greatness. So in all that, saying all that, our wisdom and in our mightiness is supposed to, our law is supposed to be wisdom and mightiness in the sight of these heathen nations. But Because we don't trust the Most High, we trust in man, we've become a reproach to the nation. Now the heathen look at us and laugh. Y'all niggas dancing on the stage making all that money, but the white man making that money off of you. You doing all this work and got all this talent and all these gifts. But white supremacy is profiting off of it. Or they'll put a nigga like Jay-Z in the mix and he gonna profit off of it so that they can profit even more off of it. But you ain't gonna question it because it's Jay-Z. So the so-called best rapper to ever live. The best rapper alive, so-called. I ain't never heard nobody say, hey, put on that new Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? When the Black Album came out, brothers was like, it was cool. You know what I'm saying? It was good, but 50 Cent's album was out and it was bumping. We in the car riding to the club, we bumping 50. You know what I'm saying? Hell, even Eminem. I really hate to give him credit 'cause I really don't like Eminem. But nobody can deny that 90s Eminem, when he first came out, Kim, when he was trying to put old girl in the trunk, it was bumping. You know what I'm saying? Slocky. Let's drop that. Let's go. We want to go to the Apocrypha. Let's go to 1 John 3 and 4. 1 John. That's lucky. Chapter 3 and verse 4. It's lucky. John is one of them. The 1 John is one of them small, obscure books. It's back towards Revelation. We're in 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4. Right? And the reason we have to go here is because, again, brothers and sisters will make excuse to commit sin. Right? They'll say that Christ's death meant that the law was erased, done away with. Because Christ's sacrifice was to repent, to cleanse us of the debt, to pay the debt that we all owe because of the sins that we commit. That was the point of Christ's sacrifice, to give us another fighting chance so that we can repent, grow, be better, do better, and strive to be perfect. Right? So this is 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4. You there, sis? It says, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. Now, the Christians will tell us that we can't commit sin, that it's wrong to commit sin. But they'll tell you that the law is done away with. So by doing that, you're teaching people that it's okay to commit sin. You're removing the accountability aspect of it. Each one of us is accountable. The scriptures say, work out thy own soul salvation. We have this Bible in our church, in our houses as children. Our grandparents forced us to go to church when we was kids. Our mothers, our fathers forced us. Somebody in our families forced us to go to church as we were younger. So it's not like we never had the chance to learn these things, right? And because we've had these things in our house, there's no excuse for why we don't seek out the Lord, seek after him, to serve him and make and please him, obey him, be obedient to him. Right. But they tell us that we don't have to. They remove our accountability from it. Christ died so that you can eat that pork, brother. He made all things clean, brother. Let's get that in Mark right quick. Let's go, drop that. Let's go to Mark chapter 7. Mark is right after Matthew. We're going to Mark chapter 7 and verse, what is it, 2? Oops, she lost it. Wrong page. Let's start at verse 1. Let me know when you get there, sis. We're on the Mark, though, because, again, they'll say that we can eat all meats. We can eat all food. It don't matter what it is. It's all lawful now, right? Because what goes in the body don't defile you, don't make you unclean. It's what come out that make you unclean, right? That's what they teach us. But let's read what Christ was talking about when he said that. We're going to start at verse 1. This is Mark chapter 7 and verse 1. Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes, which came from Jerusalem. So the Pharisees and scribes came from Jerusalem to talk to Christ. In verse 2, and when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashen hands, they found fault. Straight up. The context of all of what we're about to read about now has been established. The scribes and the Pharisees saw Christ and his disciples, and they saw his disciples eating without washing their hands. And they chastised them. They called it sin and everything, right? It says, for the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands often, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders, not the laws of God, not the position of Christ or the Most High, nothing that Moses taught. This is the tradition of the elders. So it's not a sin to eat without washing your hands, right? And when they come from, this verse 4, and when they come from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots and brazen vessels and the tables and of tables. So this is talking about the men actually having touched stuff and not washing their hands, proving more that their hands was dirty. They needed to be washed. Verse 5. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why not walk, Slakia, why walk not thy disciples according to the traditions of the elders? See again, the tradition of elders, not the traditions of the law, not what the Most High would have us do. So they're questioning, how come your disciples don't do what we be telling them to do? They doing what you say that the Lord said we have to do. It says, but eat bread with unwashing hands. So again, even all the way down to verse 5, the context is still talking about eating food without washing our hands, right? Let's jump way forward. Where is it? Let's jump to verse 18. And he saith unto them, are ye so without understanding also? Do ye not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entereth into a man, it cannot defile him? So this right here is where the Christians will say, see, Christ said it don't matter what thing is without. What to be without means is to not be within you, obviously. So it's outside of your body. They'll say, see, Christ says, so whatever we put inside our body that's not from inside our body, it don't make us defiled. It don't make us unclean. Right? But that's not what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about food. He was talking about eating dirt, basically. Eating dirty food. Literally dirty food. Food with dirt on it. Not unlawful food, lawful foods, but with dirt on them. That's what Christ was talking about. We got that context in verse 2 and in verse 8. I'll read verse 8 one more time. Slack it, not 8. In verse verse 2 and verse 5. And then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? Slack it. So we got the context already established for the whole chapter that we are supposed to wash our hands according to the Pharisees and the tradition of the elders. But Christ said the thing that go inside of you is not what defiles you, but what comes out of you is what defiles you. But he wasn't talking about food. Nowhere in this verse was it talking about food. In this chapter, it's talking about eating unclean food, unlawful food. It's talking about eating food with your dirty hands, putting the dirt of touching pots. Let me read that verse again. Verse 4. And when they come from the market, except they wash their hands, they eat not. So unless they wash their hands, they don't eat. Why? Because they're coming from the market. And many other things there be which they have received to hold, meaning they literally was picking up stuff and put it in their hands. As the washing of cups and pots and brassen vessels and of tables. So all these things the brothers was touching, the Pharisees and Sadducees was saying, why don't they wash their hands before they eat? So this ain't got nothing to do with eating foods, eating pork, shrimp, catfish, you know what I'm saying, tuna, none of that unlawful food. You know what I'm saying? This ain't got nothing to do with none of that. This is talking about eating food, period, without washing your hands, right? But there are Christians that tell us that we can eat unclean foods because of this verse right here without understanding what it means. They make excuses to be able to disobey the Most High as opposed to just be obedient to him and serve him the way he told us to. right? We read on. Verse 19, because it entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the drought, purging all meats, right? The purging of all meats, meaning when it goes into your belly and you break it down in your system and you digest it, and then you defecate it out, you're purging all of the dirt that you just ingested out of your body. Think of it this way. Cows got four stomachs, right? The reason why cows have four stomachs, but they still lawful to be eaten. I mean, the reason why cows are lawful to be eaten is because they have four stomachs. They're called ungulates. They're even-toed ungulates. They're cover-footed. But ungulates, they chew the cud. They eat grass and whatever else is in the grass. Sometimes they'll eat poop. Sometimes they'll eat grass covered in urine. You know what I'm saying? Ants, unclean animals, unclean creatures. They'll just eat. They're just eating what's there in front of them, right? But the Lord gave them a digestive system that will break it all down so that when they defecate, it's purged out of their body. So the meat isn't tainted. It's not unclean. It's not a nasty meat to be eaten. So that's the basis of what the Lord was talking about, what Christ was talking about here. But again, Christians will make excuse to be able to commit sin. Apparently Muslims will too. Because I recently heard a debate where Muslims were saying that we can do the same thing. We can eat whatever we want because of this verse. But that's an argument they heard from Christianity, or they carried over into Christianity with them, right? So I'm gonna go to 1 John chapter 2 and verse 5. 1 John chapter 2 and verse 5. Let me know when you get there. All right, it's book of 1 John chapter 2 and verse 5. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. This is how we know we love the Most High and that we are one in him when we keep his commandments. It says it right there, plain upon tables. So many instances in the Bible where we're told to follow the laws of God, you know what I'm saying, to serve the Most High the way he commanded us to do it. But at every turn, there's people telling us that we don't have to, that they'll make excuses to why they want that we can do whatever we want. Because it's fun not to commit to not follow the law. It's fun to commit sin and get high and do drugs and commit violence and all type of atrocities. It's fun to do those things. It's not fun to have to limit yourself to being righteous. But what's on the other end of that non-righteousness? Death, suffering, loss, pain, anguish. All of those things are on the other end of that spectrum. When you choose the fun style, the fun life, yeah, it's fun in the moment. You might not die right this very moment. You might not be suffering right this very moment. But that's not always true. You remember that story about that sister who went to that party with her friends, and long story short, the hotel ended up in the deep freezer, dead. She would have went home, that wouldn't have happened. Not saying that that's literally why that happened to her. You know, the reports come out that they backdoored or whatever, this, that, and the third. But that also goes to show, you know what I'm saying, when we choose the fun lifestyle, choose the fun friends instead of the grounded friends who got a sense of morality to them, you never know what could happen. And obviously that could happen with the grounded friends too. But it's less likely to happen with them versus the ones who just go out and do whatever with whoever. And then next thing you know, you end up getting back door. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you a story. There's a brother in my slavery. He was telling me about a time he was messing with this girl and he was beefing with some guy or whatever, and he didn't know that the girl knew the guy. But he was at her house, sleep in the bed. He woke up like 2 o'clock in the morning and she wasn't next to him in the bed. And as he was like getting up out the bed, he told me he heard her in the living room on the phone. And he said he was listening. He heard her say, "Yeah, he's in here right now. Y'all, I'm gonna leave the door open. Y'all just come and get him." And so the brother said he got up and he packed up his stuff and he left. You know, so that's an example of he thought somebody that he's messing with, he could trust because he thought he knew her. And the whole time she was setting him up to be unalived by some nigga that he didn't know that she knew. You know what I'm saying? But she ain't have no foundation in nothing. He ain't got no foundation in nothing. But she ain't had no foundation in nothing either, other than the streets, just like him. Just like the nigga that was trying to come and do that to him, right? And because they had no foundation in them, it was way more likely that he was going to end up unalive. If the Lord wasn't with him and woke him up, and I'll tell him what could have happened to that brother. But he here now. The Lord was with him, you know? But if we want the Lord to be with us, it requires us to be obedient to him. Let's drop that. Well, we'll read it one more time. It's 1 John chapter, what I say, 2 and verse 5. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby we know that we are in him. Verse 6. He that saith he abideth in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked, meaning walking even as Christ walked. Christ didn't make an excuse to not serve God. Christ came here to be the example of how we're supposed to serve God. So everything we're supposed to do is supposed to be what Christ would do. And that's what the Christians say, but they right. What would Jesus do? But that's really how we're supposed to view it, you know. But also, why Christ got to be standing right there over your shoulder for you to do right? You shouldn't. That shouldn't be the case for none of us. You know, the pastors and charismatic speakers and leaders of movements tell us it's okay to live any way that's contrary to the law, statutes, and commandments. All of them are sinners, though, and the Lord ain't with none of them. They tell you that God hates the sin, but he loves the sinner. Let's go to Psalms chapter, I think it's 5 and 5. The book of Psalms. Or it might be Proverbs. Let's start. Let's check. I'm gonna check Psalms first, just to be sure. I'm going off the top of the head. I ain't gonna hear in a minute, to be honest. Psalms. Nope. That's 4 and 5. It's lucky. Psalms 5 and 5. God, let me know when you get there. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 5 and verse 5. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight, and thou hatest all workers of iniquity. That verse right there flat out says the Most High God hates workers of iniquity. He hates the sinner. That's what iniquity is sin. He hates workers of iniquity. If you actively commit sin, the Lord hates you. But your pastor, your big mama, everybody around you will say, Lord love. But matter of fact, my uncle was talking to me about that, talking about you know what I'm saying? Y'all talk down on niggas that sell dope, sell drugs, this, that, and third. But the Lord be with niggas like us. The Lord be with niggas that sell drugs and stuff. No, the Lord hates that you sell drugs and stuff like that. And he's with you in the sense that he's giving you a chance to see that you need to stop destroying his people, polluting your community. But he's definitely not with you in that act. Why do you think you get busted? Why do you think you went to prison multiple times for this same thing? Why do you think that as soon as life get good for you, everything come down in shambles? Because the Lord's trying to get your attention. You're obviously an intelligent brother if you can remember all the maths, you know what I'm saying? You know how to talk to people, you got charisma, you got the spirit, a camp spirit on you. And you're using that to deceive the people as opposed to lead the people, heal the people. If you so good that you can sell rubbers to a monk, if you can sell water to a fish, that means you can convince brothers and sisters to not do drugs. You can convince brothers and sisters to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. But it's easier and it's more profitable to destroy people. So what makes us any different than the white supremacy with the pharmaceutical market? Sure, they could cure all of our diseases, but they don't make no money by curing our diseases. They make money off of giving us medicines with side effects that's going to cause other diseases. So why? We got to come back and give more medicine. And they keep us sick, and then they give us more medicine. The logic is sound. It's a business plan for them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's locked here. I messed up the screen. There we go. All right. They said the only way to know you serving the Most High is if you following his laws, statutes, and commandments. That's the only way to know. And then you'll see the signs right there. You know what I'm saying? When you start to do that, life ain't going to necessarily just get easier for you, but things are going to start making sense. I lost a lot of friends who I thought was my friends because I decided I wanted to change my life. I wanted to be better. I ain't 100% perfect all the time, but the goal is to be that 100% perfect all the time. And I go out of my way to ensure that I don't let nothing pull me from that goal, pull me from there. I'm never gonna stop. The scriptures say that the just a just man falls 7 times and get back up. The wicked man just falls into mischief. When you sway off the path and you just stay going that direction, instead of seeing, damn, I'm really messing up, I need to stop. And then you start to correct yourself. That brother is righteous. That brother is just. That sister is righteous. And that sister is just. More so than the bastard that goes, seeks after evil and just actively chooses to be evil. Right? Let's drop that. Let's go to Matthew 19. No, let's go to Matthew 5 and 17. Let's get Matthew chapter 5. And verse 17. It's a lot. The Bible be so big, there's a lot of pages in here. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17. You there? So this is Christ right here speaking. He said, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. Stop right there. Immediately, we got a red flag because our leaders have taught us, our grandparents and mothers and fathers, and whoever then drug you to church taught you that Christ did away with the law. Well, what did Christ just say? Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. Christ said, I ain't come to destroy those things. He said, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. They'll also tell you, see, brother, we ain't got to keep the law because Christ fulfilled the law when he died on the cross. Really. So because Christ died on the cross, I can commit adultery now? Well, no, you can't commit adultery. That's against the law. That's a sin. But sin is transgression of the law. So you're telling me since Christ sacrificed himself on the cross, now I can eat children? No, brother. That's a sin. That's unlawful. That goes against the commandments. But the commandments are the law. The commandments are literally written in the law. Right? So they'll tell you that Christ's death meant one thing, but Christ out his own mouth telling you that he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill. What did he come to fulfill? The things written of him in the prophecies that was going to have to occur. The scripture said that Christ, I'm paraphrasing, but it said Christ for coming, his going forth were from everlasting. It was always planned that Christ was going to come and lay down his life for us so that we have no excuse to not have a living example that lived a living and sacrificed himself example of how to be perfect. We don't have no excuse to say, well, he was born by angels. You know what I'm saying? He's the son of God. We're all the sons of God. So we don't have an excuse to say we can't do it as well. We might struggle. It might be a little hard for us, but there ain't no excuse for us not to at least try. And when we fail, we pick ourselves back up and we try harder. And we try harder. And don't ever let nobody sway you into thinking that we don't have to do this work to serve the Most High the way he commanded us to. Right? Let me go to Deuteronomy chapter 17. No, let me think. Not there. We'll keep reading, matter of fact. I'll read the next verse. Verse 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all be fulfilled. So right there, it backs up exactly what I just said. Christ didn't do away with the law because all things ain't fulfilled. Heaven and earth have not passed. We still here on earth. The heavens are still right above our head. All things have not been fulfilled. What's supposed to be fulfilled? What are we waiting on? We're waiting on Christ to return, to redeem the children of Israel from this oppressor, from this captivity. I was at the slavery yesterday, and the brother's like, I don't mean to keep talking about my slavery, but it's just good talking points. I work with all brothers and sisters. I get the chance to interact with them when we just one-on-one in the field and just see where their heads are. But they ask me questions more than I even ask them. So a brother asked me, he was like, I know what your religious belief is. He calls it my religious belief, whatever. He's like, I know what your religious belief is and everything. But let me ask you, what do you believe would fix the problem with black people in the earth? We say in America. And I flat out told him, I asked him, I said, you want the long run answer or the short term right here, right now answer? He said, I want the ultimate answer. What's the answer to the problems that's plaguing black people in America? I said, putting white people in chains, removing them from power. And then I gave him the verse where it talked about while the wicked are in rulership, the people mourn. But when the righteous bear rule, the people will rejoice. Right now, white supremacy rules the earth. Who's killing all the animals? In 2022, the US government dropped a nuclear bomb in the Atlantic Ocean. They killed an entire generation of aquatic life. That also, that same year, from the fallout from that, the chain reaction from that, all them chemicals out there in that water being stirred up by the storms and everything out in the ocean and brought over here towards land, hundreds of birds just start falling out the sky, dying randomly. There's a whole swath of cattle on different ranches that just died. All of that happened after they dropped that bomb in the ocean. Now, in the book of Job, it says, if you ask the birds in the air, if you ask the fish that's in the water and the beast that's on the land who the devil is, they'll tell you. It ain't black people that's dropping bombs in the ocean and killing entire generations of animals. It ain't Mexicans that's doing that. It's only white supremacy. And I explained that to the brother, and he understood exactly what I was saying. I didn't even have to get all biblical and deep with him. He made perfect sense. We're not the ones that's doing this. The people that rule the world are white supremacy, namely the Jews, the Jewish people. They're the ones polluting the earth and destroying everything. The ozone layer, when COVID happened, the ozone layer had time to heal. People were driving their cars. Everybody was in the house damn near. And the ozone layer healed like that. Not like that, but in a proverbially speaking, like that. Relatively speaking, it was quick compared to how long it's been being damaged and polluted. You know what I'm saying? The earth, the Lord created the earth to be self-sustaining, and naturally it will heal over time. But white supremacy is greedy, and they're gonna destroy everything, you know. So these are more points that I explained to the brother. You know, he asked me, what's the solution? The solution, first of all, is white supremacy going in chains. You remove them, their influence, their power, and their control over us and our people. We're gonna stop doing drugs. We're gonna stop pimping out our women. We're gonna stop having sex with women and throwing them away. Women gonna stop being whores. Women gonna stop not loving their children and having abortions. All the things, the curses that written about us as a people, all that goes away because it's all inflicted on us by our oppressor. But it's all punishment because we don't serve the Most High and we make up excuses not to. I'm gonna finish it with this last verse. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 15. Let me know when you get there. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 15. It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 15. See, I have set before you, Slacken. See, I have set before thee this day life and good and death and evil. The Lord put in front of us two options: life and good, to be able to live and serve Him, or death and evil. That death is spiritual death. And the ultimate backlash of that will eventually be our death at the hands of oppression or the evil things that our own people do to each other. You know what I'm saying? But he gave us two options: life and good or death and evil. Those are our choices. So we can either choose to trust in man and doing what man said we can do and should do, or we can sacrifice our desires, our wills, our lusts, and do what the Lord tells us to do so that we can live. We got any questions before I end it? If you got any questions in the chat, I'll give y'all about 30 seconds. And with that, this is the ISUPK, so out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. This has been Thursday night scripture breakdown class, and that's my time. Shalom.
Shalom, Israel. It's that time again. The ISUPK, under Commanding General Yohana, presents the Lord's 57th Annual Passover. That's right, the Lord's 57th Annual Passover, April 4th, 2026, in Houston, Texas. All Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans are commanded to observe the Lord's Passover. This will be the biggest Passover to date. You do not want to miss this. Fresh lamb, fresh wine, and bitter herbs as commanded by the Most High. Only $200 per person, ages 17 and up. The biggest event of the year. There is only one Passover, and it's under Commanding General Yohana. See you there, Israel. Shalom.
Nobody else there to compare to. Train for war, men of war, and war like apparel. Prefer our leaders, can't get between us. Watch where you stepping.